Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Futurist Symposium, the future of technology, the arts, and design, which is the exciting kickoff to this year's Imagine RIT Creativity and Innovation Festival. Before we get started with our panel, let me give you just a little preview of what is to come tomorrow. We're going to be featuring more than 400 exhibits, which I think is a record, from an incredible 2,853 exhibitors. And so if you come back tomorrow, you can join all of us and about 30,000 of your closest friends. I'm sure you'd be very impressed, you will be impressed by all the hard work put in by our enterprising students, faculty, and staff. This year's festival also marks the Imagine debut of The Shed, our student hall for exploration and development, which is now the new central hub on campus. It's sort of a new version of a student center that is all about maker spaces and performing arts. I encourage you to come early tomorrow and spend the entire day exploring the campus. If you do that, you'll see about half of the festival. And you'll discover that RIT is truly shaping the future and improving the world at the intersection of technology, the arts, and design. The festival's mission is to inspire the next generation of problem solvers by connecting young people to the wonders of science, technology, engineering, math, the arts, design, and yes, even business, the health sciences, and liberal arts. We put a high value on bringing goodness to the world, and I think you'll see that. And our diverse and talented students are really constructive agents of positive change that today's society needs so badly. The world needs inspiring, collaborative, and original thinkers and doers with a deep commitment to the welfare of humanity, and you'll find that here at RIT. It all begins with our people. We have a unique assembly of truly exceptional individuals, maybe even just a little bit offbeat, but that's us. This is a place where you can exercise multiple talents, satisfy your thirst for learning and doing, and experiment along the way. In just a few minutes, you'll hear from our panel of exceptional individuals and how they are using their talents to look into the future, and they will share with us what they see on the horizon in the areas of technology, the arts, and design. First, let me introduce our interpreters, Kirsten Borkowski and Lola Johnston. We have Kirsten here. Where's Lola? There's Lola. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate it. Okay. Let me also thank our sponsors for this event, WXXI, our PBS station here in Rochester, Liberty Mutual Insurance, and of course RIT's Magic Spell Studios, which is hosting us this afternoon. Before we get started talking about the future, let's thank our 4 leading innovators and futurists who will be joining us on our panel today. They're some of RIT's best and brightest. In order of their presentations, let's welcome Bob Morreale, who is class of 1992 and master's degree in 1993. Bob is the Senior Division Chair for Immersive and Experiential Learning and Assistant Professor of Biomedical Communications at the Mayo Clinic College of Medicine and Science. And Bob, that's in Rochester, Minnesota, right? Yeah, I have a daughter-in-law who's a nurse at Mayo Clinic, so that's neat. Okay. And then next up will be Jeyhan Kartaltepe. Jeyhan is an associate professor in RIT School of Physics and Astronomy, and she's the director for the Laboratory for Multiwavelength Astrophysics, and you'll all understand that shortly. And next will be Chukwuma Morah, and he says his online name is either ChuBoi or just Chu, so it can get pretty short. We'll look forward to hearing from ChuBoi. He graduated in year 2009. He's the Chief Marketing Officer at Foot.gg, which is a gaming content creator, and he is also a former host with EA Sports. And then last but by no means least is Karen Roth. Karen is class of 1996. She is president of the Society of Women Engineers, but that's actually kind of a volunteer position, right, Karen? Her real job is she's deputy director of AFWERX. This is an innovation lab with the United States Air Force, and Karen is also the 2024 Distinguished Alumni Awardee for the Golisano College of Computing and Information Sciences. You're going to be hearing more about the impressive backgrounds of these individuals in just a minute. For now, let me just introduce our esteemed moderator, Evan Dawson. Evan joined WXXI Radio, our local PBS station, in year 2014. He's host of Connections, the weekday program that focuses on all the major issues of the day for the greater Rochester and the Finger Lakes region. I want to thank Evan for joining us today, but before I turn it over to Evan, just one question for the audience. Are you ready to experience the future? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, President Munson. It's an honor to be here. I was just looking up some of our backlogs of shows. I've been doing Connections for 10 years now, and at the end of my first year, moving into 2015, we asked experts in their field to look 25 years into the future. Look into 2040. How will the world change based on what your field is doing? In one sense, it felt like 25 years. Human beings, we don't handle timescales very well. We think long-term is a decade or so. And in 2040, these experts were talking about pretty significant change. But now when you look back at that, it feels almost quaint with how fast things are moving. We need not look to 2040. I was listening to Ezra Klein's podcast last week, and he had one of the leaders in AI on, and they were talking about a specific innovation that was down the line in the future. And Ezra said, we're talking 2030, 2040. He said, no, 12 to 24 months. That was down the line in the future with AI. Things are really moving quickly. And it is a great pleasure to be among some of the great thinkers, innovators, science minds. And as a lay person, I always love being here and getting a chance to talk to the panelists here. RIT has such an impressive roster of alums, of people who have changed the world, of people who are changing the world. And let's find out more about them. In terms of format now, each panelist is going to have a few minutes to introduce themselves and speak briefly on their topic of expertise, and they'll talk about tech, the arts, design, as it applies to what they do. After all the presentations are complete, I will have some questions of my own for the group, and we will also have plenty of room for you in the audience to ask questions, so feel free to do that. It's always a great part of the conversation here. And we're going to start with Bob Morreale. Bob is a double RIT alum who's distinguished in the field of medical illustration. He's both a board-certified medical illustrator and a fellow of the Association of Medical Illustrators. His career has included leadership roles at the Johns Hopkins Hospital and the Cleveland Clinic, culminating in his current position at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. As the Senior Division Chair of Immersive and Experiential Learning, Bob is the administrative leader of the Center for Biomedical and Scientific Visualization, the Department of Clinical Anatomy, and the Mayo Enterprise Multidisciplinary Simulation Centers and Procedural Skills Mastery Laboratories. His scholarly work has focused on advancing the use of innovative visual communication techniques to enhance medical education, patient care, and scientific research. Bob's current work at Mayo focuses on revolutionizing medical education and healthcare workforce training through immersive and experiential learning strategies and the strategic use of AR and VR, spatial computing, and 3D digital twins to design hands-on experiences with unparalleled fidelity. His commitment to leveraging advanced visualization techniques and experiential learning methodologies is a testament to the impact and the value of what he learned here at RIT. And he loves these long resumes. Bob seems like a very humble guy. He's ready to get up here. Welcome, Bob. Thanks for being here.
Evan, thanks. Evan, thanks. President Munson, thank you. And it's a real pleasure to be with you all. I'm thrilled to be back. I flew in yesterday and had just a fantastic experience so far. As I thought about some stories that I could share with you today, I came up with three, and I'll get to them in a second, but it was something that this gentleman was a youth baseball coach as I was 17, 18, looking to go to college. And so I start here, and I'll get to those three stories in a second. But Coach Michonne would always kind of get us in the, as we do today. I've coached my sons too. You got to get them after the game and you tell them a little story. It's not all about the game, it's about life. And so this quote for me has stuck with me through life. And it drives me as a professional. But it also drove me to medical illustration, and I'll tell you how. So my dream was to play college baseball. Those are some grainy photos from a video, but that's me. And then I'm under the red arrow there. I played baseball here at RIT until I got hurt in my junior year. But that's what I wanted to do. But I came to visit as I was a 17-year-old, and I wanted to do graphic design. I think that was the expression that I thought I wanted to build. I was a visual artist, and RIT, I could play baseball, and I could study graphic design. I came for a visit, and there was a sign in front of the room that said medical illustration. I thought, I'd be curious. What if I do that? I like science, I like art. I stopped in, and I saw this guy, Bob Wabnitz, who passed away in 2007. We called him, affectionately called him Wobby. It's as if he knew me. He brought me in and said, graphic design, no, this is what you want to do. And so anyhow, he convinced me, and it changed my life, and it changed my career, and it changed the trajectory of my life. The human body is complex. I liked drawing the human figure. I liked drawing faces and hands. I didn't know I liked to draw the inside of hands. And so as I got into my career, I understood that, and this just represents the medicine is super complex. And so here are 3 stories, quick stories that kind of explain my intersection with technology, art, and design. In the late 90s, I worked at Johns Hopkins as a medical illustrator. And in the Department of Surgery, I met this gentleman, Dr. Charles Paitis. Of course, I did illustrations for him. He was a colorectal surgeon, and I did illustrations for him. This was one of them. But he challenged me one day and said, I really want to understand the pathology and how, the growth of, and look back at embryology and the embryos. And we knew, being in Baltimore, there was the Carnegie Collection at NIH. But these amazing specimens are sliced. They cut them to study them. And he said, well, what if we could put these back together? I said, anything's possible. So what if we could do that? And in the day, we bought they weren't Apples, they weren't Windows, they were Silicon Graphics, SGI machines, SGI. We had an Indigo, we had an Octane, and it could push around these voxels. It could push around thousands of images. And all those green dots, I placed every one of them with my hands. And so doing segmentation and making these little embryos come back to life was a different way to tell a story. And we looked at different organ structures, particularly the GI system and how it developed. But what we found out as we were able to start to look at these with different levels of the black, gray, white, just the different levels of intensity for the organs as they were injected, we found the formation of the lung and the stomach and the heart in ways in which we didn't anticipate, and really kind of drew light to some of our studies. This, led me to think, well, I got to keep technology close and expect the unexpected. So I came to Mayo in 2005. I've been there for almost 19 years. And Mayo Clinic has developed a 3D printing laboratory that is the largest point of care, meaning in the hospital, 3D printing and additive manufacturing space really in the world. But it started with a patient case. In 2007 with Dr. Morah. I'll show you him in a second. But this is Abby and Belle, conjoined twins. As I said, I started in '05. This was in '07. And I met this gentleman, Dr. Christopher Morah. We looked at nearly 8,000 images, CTs and MRIs, and he says, as we bring these up, he says, like looking at the surface of the moon. It wasn't normal. And just to point out not normal is that, you could see R and L on either side. That's right and left. But that's posterior for each individual. So that's their backside. So it was like all convention went out the window. So we did illustrations. With Mike King and I, we created these illustrations, and 70-person team, about 30 plus for each patient. They had to have their own experts. They were connected, but they were two patients. And so we put these up in the operating room. This is the day of the operation. They plastered them up on the plaster. They put them up really nice. But during the process of planning, I said, what if? What if we could 3D print their anatomy? And we did. And so this was 2007. I think in 2005, the access for public 3D printing for small devices it was rep wrap or something. There was a process of being able to replicate it in a device like a standalone printer, and of course we have grown from there. But we didn't have one at Mayo, and we partnered with somebody up in the Twin Cities, and we created their chest wall and we created their liver, and man, were these used. And so and also they're clear. If you can see, one's clear. There wasn't really a ton of materials to deal with, and so I painted this one, and I put clay for the cartilage, and they use them to plan. And so this is me under the red arrow in the operating room that day. Dr. Morah said, Bob, come over. And so I got up on this stool. He's like, this is exactly what we had been looking at. So we had visualized it the way in which he was seeing it. It was unbelievable. And then they announced, we have 2 livers, and the room just exploded in applause. And they went home this way. And this is them a couple years ago. They're 18-year-old healthy individuals. At Mayo, this is St. Mary's. This is where their surgery was. And in that green spot is about 10,000 square feet of 3D printing material, technology. This is how we operate today. I don't know if it's the majority, but it's a lot of surgical procedures that use 3D printing for planning. So we changed the way in which we plan for surgeries. We also take through segmenting, which is now more automated, and the technology is different for imaging. We create custom simulators. And so this is a 3D version of this pleural mesothelioma. I wanted to say that slow. And so this is the inside. This is silicone. These are all 3D printed. And you can go in time and again on this person's anatomy, make mistakes because it's not them. And so we have this environment, this culture at Mayo to be able to come in and train in ways that don't put the patient at risk. So we have, this lab is about 2,000 square feet, human anatomy laboratory. We have them across our site. So in Rochester, that's where I am. We also have a hospital system in Phoenix, Arizona, and in Jacksonville, Florida. And we have these similar resources at each site. But our multidisciplinary simulation centers, we have microsurgery, microsurgical, and skull-based training. These are the same microscopes they use in the OR. Our procedural skills mastery laboratory, pretty unique. It's just, again, right below the ORs. about 8,000 square feet with the highest tech that's available, that we just explore ways in which we can treat the patient just before we treat the patient. And so this is my last story, and I didn't point it out, but this story, and I named them. Sorry, the first one was, a story of discovery with the embryos. The twin story was a story of hope, and this is a story of confidence. So this is a patient with a significant tumor in their cerebellum, and it's benign. They'll live if they take this out. But taking it out isn't so easy. You can see there in the inset is that there is a network of vessels they got to get through in order to take it out. Also, there's a number of types of tumors that are treated and untreated. There are about 700,000 that live with a brain tumor diagnosis, almost 90,000 just last year. The segmentation, unlike the embryos, this was kind of automated, but has to be validated. And so this is the patient, this is the orientation anatomy, and this is the tumor. It's the tumor and it's the network of vessels. Now the physician can pick it up and look at it and turn it and see what they're up against. However, or also, we created 3D models that you can move in space and texture it and put some texture to it and say that, hey, this is not just the vessels surrounding it, but the vessels are incorporated in it. And so there's a representation of how vascular this tumor is. And not only can you just look at it on a screen, but we've created some virtual environments that now the whole care team, as you can see, the whole care team comes into the cadaver lab, they see this patient data, they can pick it up, turn it around. We have one print, sometimes we print 2, 3, but now everybody can have it with a headset. You can take the anatomy off. You can look at the patient's anatomy while you're looking at this to kind of see angle and what approach. They're going to switch over here. Now this is the patient's anatomy, the imaging. And Dr. Eric Moore, I'll never forget, he said, this is somewhat recent. He said, I've never felt so confident going into a surgery like that. And so, this idea of being curious about what you could potentially do with in my case, my skill of interesting in visuals, but understanding that it's more than just creating the visuals, it's aligning the technology and designing the experience. So what if has played a big part in my life and in my career. And so now we're moving into, and this is the last bit here, is that this is an unfortunate death where now the anatomy, typically destroyed in a forensic study, we want to capture it. And so I'd invite you real quick, if I have time, is take your phone out and scan that code, scan that QR code, and you'll have this heart on your phone. And you could move it around and it's 3D, pretty cool. So we started to create an archive through our pathology department and in our anatomy lab that we're now capturing our data and anatomy that would typically be destroyed. And now we got these 3D models that can be put into immersive experiences. And then here's the exciting part, and something that we're really working on with some intensity is to digitally twin humans at a pore level detail. So when we're going to get there, to have a physician expert, a physician mentor, somebody that is going to be in your health portal at some point to be able to ask questions instead of typing it, that could speak back to you, and with some confidence, you may know it's a digital doctor so-and-so, but we are moving towards creating realistic digital humans that is driven by trusted AI that can leverage all of Mayo Clinic's knowledge over its 160 years, and it'll be able to get smarter as time goes on. So we have a surgeon who is is longing to be digital twins. And I said, Dr. Meyer is his name, Frederick Meyer. I said, Fred, it'll make you, 30 years down the road, you'll be smarter than you are today. So I'll leave you with this. Before I show you that, is that this opportunity of exploring what could be. We are now at a point in which we can take these digital twins. We're working with a company in LA called Digital Domain, and they work in you may know them. They work in the entertainment industry. They have a piece of software called Charlatan. And the gentleman with the lighter colored hair and glasses is a digital twin.
In the DHG group, we've been doing a lot of research on how to create digital humans, digital creatures, digital characters. There really isn't any real way just to turn one person into somebody else. That technology just doesn't exist. We're not able to sort of take somebody's face and immediately just suddenly transform it into my face. If you just think about all the stuff that has to be done, all my expressions, the way I move, the way my head moves and turns, there's just too much going on in a human face. So I don't think anybody needs to worry anymore. There's just no way to just transform somebody into somebody else, and that's not going to happen anytime in the near future.
Stay curious. Thanks.
Remarkable. Let me welcome next Jeyhan Kartaltepe. Dr. Kartaltepe is an astrophysicist in the School of Physics and Astronomy here at RIT. She is an expert in the area of galaxy formation and evolution and is interested in understanding how the first stars and galaxies in the universe formed and how various physical processes shaped their transformation into today's galaxies. She is the principal investigator of Cosmos Webb, the largest James Webb Space Telescope program observed in its first 2 years of operations, which is mapping out a large area of the sky in the near and mid-infrared to study how galaxies in the early universe formed in relation to structures on large scales. Do you like how I pretended like I know what near and mid-infrared was? That was pretty good, wasn't it? She's also a leading co-investigator on the SEERS program, one of the first programs to obtain observations, and the principal investigator of POPPIES, a newly approved James Webb Space Telescope program that will obtain spectroscopy for thousands of galaxies in the early universe. Welcome, Jeyhan.
All right, hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Get to tell you a little bit about myself and the work that I do here at RIT with our wonderful students. So I'd like to start off with a little bit about myself. I wear a few different hats here at RIT, and I like to think I have the best job in the world because I get to spend my time working with students, teaching classes, getting them involved in my research, and thinking about the extremes of the universe and where we came to be and how our universe formed. And I don't think many people get to say that about their day, right? That they get to go through that many different types of activities. So I love it. Here are a few of the things that I do, some of my titles, right? I'm an associate professor in physics and astronomy. I'm also the graduate program coordinator for our astrophysical sciences and technology PhD program, which is actually the largest astrophysics graduate program in New York State. Which is hard to believe, right? We're growing, we have amazing students. And I'm the director for our laboratory for Multiwavelength Astrophysics. So that's the group here at RIT that work on using data from across the entire electromagnetic spectrum in order to understand the universe in a lot of different ways. This is just a picture of my research group. This was actually a photo taken at our last meeting last summer. I work with undergraduate students, graduate students, and postdocs, and really this is my favorite part of the job, getting to teach them, work with them, show them how to analyze data, and really watch them blossom, from beginning students into scientists in their own right. And at the end, I like to call them my colleagues, so I really enjoy this part of my work. So this is the photo that I had up as the background on the introductory slide. Some of you have probably seen images like this. This is a galaxy deep field. This particular one is a small piece of one of the first images taken with the James Webb Space Telescope, which I'll tell you a little bit more about in a moment. But what I love about images like this is it really encompasses the entire field of galaxy evolution and what we do. Everything you see in this image is a galaxy, every tiny speck. With a couple of exceptions, there's a bright star on the top, which you can see, based on those spikes, maybe a couple of others, but everything else is a galaxy. And if you were to zoom in, you'd see more, and you'd see them in great detail. And if you were to zoom in, you'd see even more. And this is just one teeny tiny part of the sky. And so images like this have taught us about the scale of our universe, right? If we were to add this up over the entire sky all around us, there's trillions of galaxies out there. And trillions, that's a number we can't really comprehend, right, in our day-to-day existence. And so this is what I find really fascinating about this area of study, is that, we want to understand how our universe formed, how it came to be, and how all of these galaxies evolved so that galaxies like the Milky Way that we live in can exist today, and people like us can exist on one planet within it. So one of the ways that we study the universe is using telescopes. I'm going to particularly talk about the James Webb Space Telescope, but as I mentioned, we use data from across the entire spectrum, using technology covering from the X-ray all the way through the radio part of the spectrum, because different physical processes produce different types of light at all these wavelengths. And so the James Webb Space Telescope in particular is really a marvel, beyond imagination. So it launched in 2021. It was in development for about 30 years. And so this was a huge technological achievement that required the cooperation of thousands of people all over the world. So this was a huge international endeavor that involved scientists, engineers, software developers, etc., to make this happen. And if you imagine, 30 years ago, thinking about the technology that existed at that point, right? This telescope was designed as a dream, right? This is what we want to do and what we want to accomplish. Now we have to develop the technology to do it. And that's what happened. And it actually happened in a way that ended up being flawless. Like, everything worked well, the launch was perfect, and it has been a huge success. And so I was not involved in the design or the development of this telescope. I was aware of it even since I was an undergraduate, starting to be built. And so I've kind of followed it, over my whole career. But I got to be really fortunate to be among the first users of this facility. And so my research group and I are using data from this telescope, like the image that I showed you previously. And so that involves a lot of different surveys if we want to study lots of galaxies in our universe and how they evolve. And so I just highlight a few of them here, showing some of the logos. Astronomers, I guess everybody loves to make logos, right, to illustrate, the kinds of things they do. And so I'm leading two of these large programs that were introduced before. One is called Cosmos Web, where we're studying galaxies on large scale by taking a relatively large image of the sky, where we'll have hundreds of thousands of galaxies to study and look at. And the other program, Poppies, where we're going to obtain spectra. And spectra give us a lot of physical information about the galaxies in addition to just their images and what they look like. But I'm involved in a lot of other projects. And one thing I want to emphasize are the numbers, right? All these projects involve really large data sets, really large volumes of images of spectroscopy. And it's starting to become a data analysis challenge for all of us, for how to work with this kind of data. The James Webb Space Telescope, is taking some data, but on our horizon, we have new facilities being built right now that are going to, blow this out of the water in terms of the volume of data that we're going to be getting. And so there's a real challenge for us to figure out how to work with this. And so we're learning how to use and develop new machine learning tools and other computational techniques to automate the process of studying data. We're using citizen science to get the general public involved in helping to make measurements. And we're doing all these things to help us understand our universe. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kartaltepe. Up next is Chukwuma Morah, Chu. is a 2009 graduate from RIT with a Bachelor's of Science in Industrial Engineering. And he chose to focus on marketing soon after, and thanks to his passion for gaming and soccer, he became the community and influencer manager for the EA Sports FIFA games at Electronic Arts in Vancouver in 2012. After gaining valuable experience, he ventured out on his own in 2015 as a content creator and an esports host. Since then, he's amassed over 1.1 million social media followers and worked with brands such as Adidas, Coca-Cola, PlayStation, Manchester United, Xbox, and more. He's also currently the Chief Marketing Officer at gaming data startup Foot.gg, which has over 7.5 million users and 50 million monthly page views in just its second year. Welcome, Chu.
Alrighty. Tough acts to follow. I didn't save any lives like my friend over here. I was just yelling at pixels through RIT and in my full-time jobs over the years. So, yeah, that's me. I don't know why I did that slide again, but this is my the timeline that I've gone through, especially as I work my way out of RIT or into RIT. So my first year at RIT was 2004. Then I became an orientation assistant. I was under Jen Hinton, who works here at Magic. So she taught me everything I know about the campus. And we call it by building numbers. I hear they don't really call it by building numbers anymore, building 9, building 7. But she taught us both, and that was a great experience. I became the president and then RA of International House, which is where I met most of my best friends, to be honest with you. Then I graduated. I had a minor in marketing. And it was Professor Neil Hare that really got me into marketing, which is what I focused on later on. I went to UCLA just to get some more experience in marketing. And then I got my first marketing job, but the main job that I worked on, the job I loved the most was that, all I've ever liked as a kid was playing video games and watching soccer and playing soccer. And luckily I got a job at EA Sports as a community and influencer manager, as YouTube, Twitch were blowing up, things like that. So it was really cool. I don't know if anybody knows the influencer KSI. I helped him get started. I'm sure, your kids might know who he is, probably. Ask them about KSI, but, he's a very large content creator these days. And then I decided to go out on my own, and, I wanted to still affect the game that I love, that I've grown up playing, but out on my own, I'm a bit stubborn, so I kind of always just wanted a bit more freedom. And I became a content creator as, again, YouTube was becoming more of a thing. And gaming as a profession or gaming as a hobby or a paid job started becoming a thing, at least just making videos. I wasn't really amazing at the game, but I was very informative because everything that EA Sports did in a particular part of the game, I invented all the rules and all the standards that they had, so I could just yap about it all the time. So I quit. I joined them. They rehired me actually as their esports host, which was kind of nice. And then I used that as a springboard to start becoming the esports presenter for my favorite soccer team that I supported since I was 6 years old, Manchester United in England, the biggest club in England. I don't want to see any Liverpool or Arsenal fans here because we'll chat later. And then recently I launched a gaming data startup based around FIFA, what's called Football Club now, called Foot.gg. I'll talk about all this in a bit. So RIT, honestly, man, is where nerd dreams come true. RIT was amazing because in high school, I wasn't telling girls that I was playing video games. Luckily I was athletic. I played a lot of soccer, things like that. But RIT, man, you can just become a nerd and just love it. That's why I loved so much about this college. So that's me skipping class to play FIFA 05. Some of my old professors are here, so, expose myself. Don't show this to my mom. I might have to show it to her too. So she's not gonna like that, but that's 2005. And then I started working at Vancouver. That's the campus that they have for the EA Sports games that they make, FIFA and all that. I was working from FIFA 12 to FIFA 16. And then that is me in Paris on ESPN2 talking about the game that I skipped class to play. So that's nice. And then I was in Manchester talking about FIFA 18 for my favorite football club. And so that's me with the jersey in 1998. I was living in Zimbabwe. My dad used to work for the UN, so we used to move around a lot. That's my first ever jersey, and then that's me posted on the Manchester United Instagram page, being announced by the team as their presenter. So I was the first Nigerian to ever be announced in any capacity, player or staff. on the game, and I was actually in my home village in Nigeria. I had no cell phone service, so I didn't even see this happen. So it was still a great moment that RIT helped build. And then I got to meet some of my favorite players I grew up watching, even here at RIT. You can see there's Pele in there, got to meet him. But you might recognize some of these guys, you might not. Also, Trevor Noah up there, by the way, that guy is insane at FIFA. I'm not even joking. I still have not beat him, and he lets me know that all the time. But he actually could have become a professional FIFA player. He was that good in FIFA 20. He actually beat all the recommendations needed to be a player. But I will beat him one day. So what I was hired on in EA Sports was to build FIFA Ultimate Team. At the time, it's called Football Ultimate Team, and basically it's like Pokemon on steroids. It's fantasy football on steroids. It's fantasy football, digital trading cards, and real soccer with gaming. So basically, what happens is that every in real life player in the football world, the soccer world, they get you can see there a card that has all the stats that they're rated by based on how they performed the previous season, and then every day pretty much and every week. If the player does well, then they get an improved digital trading card in the game. And kids all across the world, mainly Europe, they go absolutely insane for this. It's like, again, it was like the Pokemon phenomenon where an upgraded version based on his gameplay last week in real life gets released into packs, into digital packs. Every kid in Europe spends their pocket money on these packs. They go from $2 to $20. And basically, if I was to have the new Messi, as I showed you there, that 97 Messi, he shoots better, he runs faster. Basically, if I played that Messi versus that Messi is going to absolutely destroy the other one in the game. So it's probably the best idea I've ever seen in video games, because it's just like if you watch soccer, like literally you have to watch soccer to know what's going to happen next in the game. And that's all I ever did anyway. So it worked out absolutely wonderfully. So my job was I wore a lot of hats at that time. And they basically hired me because I was an industrial engineer. I also then moved to marketing. But, industrial engineering taught you about, logistics, planning, things like that, a lot of engineering management. But I was always into marketing. I used to love the Nike commercials. That's what got me into it. So I did marketing PR. I also standardized the content systems. There's thousands of content pieces online and in-game that go into the game. It's updated daily. So, figuring out when to post certain things at certain times in-game, out-of-game, on social media. I had to manage the dev team and marketing team and integrate them too, because the person that hired me knew that I was an engineer, so I knew how developers think, I knew how engineers think, I know how to plan like them. So I was like the Trojan horse kind of to go in, and because usually, I'll be honest, in gaming departments, the marketing teams do not like the dev teams. They think, the game sells itself without the other. So I was like that bridge thanks to my education at RIT. So when I joined, it was at $89 million a year. I was making just that part of FIFA. I left when it was $480 million in 2015, and then now it's a $1 billion part of the game. It's not even the full game, it's just like a little part of the game. So it's absolutely incredible. So you get those cards together, you build a team, and then you compete online. You also open packs. I would have opened some, but I did a lot of that outside, and I need to stop. But you compete online, offline. And then when I quit EA Sports, basically I just made content telling people if these new cards that come out every day were worth their digital investment. So basically just telling people, yeah, this guy's good, yeah, this guy's bad. I guess people really like that, and it just kind of took off from there. You can see that's David Beckham. Sometimes you can have past and present players as well. So I basically just tell people, I watch a lot of soccer, so I'm like, okay, get this guy now because he's got a current player might have a game next week that's really easy, so you might get an upgrade, or maybe you want to wait to invest. Kind of like stock picks, like I guess that Jim Cramer guy, but not bad. So like that, but for FIFA, and there's so many tens of millions of people play it, so they come to me for advice. And then now, with the help of a friend, I'm the CMO of this database website for the game itself. So it's like a companion for the game, where you basically look up the player that you want to buy, you check all his stats, you see the prices. We have up-to-the-minute prices, real-time prices, and you can basically plan out your team. So it's like the Wikipedia. It's like Wikipedia meets Robinhood of the game. And I know he said 7.5 million users. It just hit 8 million as I made this, so very good. And then, we are competing. Our number one competitor, who we know we're better than, they sold for 113 million in 2022. That's how many people go to these websites. It's crazy. So if you give me half of that, maybe I'll throw it back at Magic. Who knows? Who knows? We'll see. We'll see. The alumni team, they're coming after me. I can see them back there. No, chill. Give me a few years. Give me a few years. Relax. We'll see how it goes. So I'll quickly talk about the future of gaming and the future of the creator economy, as I'm a content creator, real quick. So the future of gaming, I mean, look at the future here in Magic. I mean, absolutely incredible studio. I was talking to Jen Hinton. She was telling me that, the students are making a game of themselves. They're releasing it. And the way they set it up is that the faculty were heads of the gaming departments and the students were the employees. And that's amazing because I'll tell you, I've released 12 games. That's exactly how it works. So good on you guys there in Magic, because you guys are giving these guys real life experience that they can take to gaming companies. But we talked about AI before in the previous presentations, but AI is just moving at an absolutely incredible pace. I think students from here will be able to make one-man gaming studios, honestly, just through text prompts, things like that. Whoever is able to use AI as assistants is just going to do the work of 5 people in one. So I think that is going to be the future that you're going to see in a few years. Is anybody know Grand Theft Auto, GTA 5? Raise of hands, yeah. So Grand Theft Auto 5 right now it's been going on for 10 years. It's got Grand Theft Auto Online. And basically what has happened is that on PC, you can make a custom server where all your friends or anybody can come join and just play Grand Theft Auto. You can make a custom RIT campus if you want to, and everybody can run on RIT, and people pay to get in those servers, and people are going absolutely insane right now with the GTA 5. GTA 6 is coming out in a couple of years, but on the right here is this rapper called T Grizzly. Now, he's made a ton of money rapping, but he once said that he makes more from his GTA server than his music, because he basically, I think he's from, he's from Detroit, so he basically made a virtual Detroit, and people just come in to hang out with him in a virtual Detroit. So GTA 6 is going to be, GTA 5 is a 10-year-old game. GTA 6 is going to be amazing technology. Everybody's talking about the metaverse this, the metaverse that. I won't lie, most of the metaverse experiences are kind of not great. But Grand Theft Auto is a game that everybody loves, a game that everybody has. There's a huge role-playing community. This is tens of millions of people playing. That's going to be what the metaverse is. People are going to have full-time jobs in GTA 6 because in role-playing, I can be the one taxi driver in the server, and I literally will get paid to be a taxi driver. That's like my job. I make content on it, but if people pay money to get into these servers, some of that revenue is going to go to the taxi drivers, the janitors, things like that. And more kids are just going to figure out how to get these things bigger and better. I think that's going to be a big future for somebody who is in gaming or wants to make a game. I know a lot of people have been talking about NFTs, and gamers don't like NFTs. Everybody has been kind of said different things about NFTs. It's basically blockchain technology that gives you full ownership, because in my game, football club, FC, basically those cards I showed you, you pay a lot of money to get those, but EA releases a new game every year. So you spend thousands. I don't want to tell you how much I've spent in that game. You will not be happy with that. But every year it gets wiped out completely. I don't own those items. So for me, I feel like any player who's the best at that game, who collects these rare items, these rare loots, should have full ownership of these so they can sell them for real money in real life. And I don't see why any top gamer should not make a full-time income just by being the best at the game and just owning things that nobody else owns. And going on to the creator economy, so Goldman Sachs says it should reach 480 billion by 2027 from 250 billion today. And I think it's only going to be a lot bigger. Influencer marketing is going to be absolutely insane. It already is, but it just has so much room to grow, especially when it comes to influencer product brands. They're going to be better than new traditional brands. Why? Because if an influencer makes a product, he already has the customers ready and waiting. Like, for instance, that's the KSI guy I was talking about. He's on the right. He used to be in our community in FIFA, and that's Logan Paul. Some of you might know him. Not the best guy, but they made a drink called Prime. And it's basically almost as big as Gatorade right now. And they only made that in 2022. So I feel like from here on and in the future, an influencer who makes a brand, a large influencer that makes a brand on his own, could have higher leverage than a brand just making a new product on their own. Because again, they have the fan base. If they just tell people to buy it, you just got millions of people that want to buy it automatically versus like spending too much on marketing. I think anybody can and should be a creator. All you have to do is just teach the people one step behind you. I feel like everybody has something to teach others, and education is very important. I think a lot of people, some of your kids or some people in the room also might want to be content creators and they want to just jump full in. I would say it's better to have a full-time job, do content creation on the side, because you can have a bit of stability, especially in this economic climate. But I think everybody has something to teach anyone, and just teaching is content creation. And again, kind of what I talked about, anybody that masters AI with content creation, you can make AI basically write a speech for it. I use AI to write this, no, I'm just kidding. But basically AI can just help you out, and those people who master it first are able to have advantage. So this is Gatorade. I mean, Gatorade, 1.3 million followers on Instagram, right? Prime, and Gatorade launched in 1965. I know that's a 8.5 billion valuation from 2000, but Prime, that drink I was talking about, launched in 2022, and it's already worth almost, at least they say, 3.4 to 8 billion. And that is in what, 2 years? Because they had so many fans, you see their follower counts there, that they just promoted too, and they just relied fully on influencer marketing. So it's just got the customers built in. So I think that is the future of new products. And this is the last slide. When it comes to content creation, we always say that there's 3 pillars. You can either entertain, educate, or inspire. You can make it off one. Like for instance, I probably made it off, I would say, inspire, because I worked in gaming. I was trying to help people to game. But if you master all 3, if you can entertain, educate, and inspire, then you're definitely going to make it in content creation for anybody that wants to get into it. But I would say the best value one is education, because you can sit there on a camera, just teach people about what you know, and somebody out there does want to learn. So I think anybody and anyone can become a content creator. I have this diagram on the side, just about what the future of work as a creator could be. It's you just following your curiosities. If you can't code, I always tell people to make content, because media is a form of code, in my opinion. It can still reach millions of people. You could be an employee, you could be an entrepreneur, and you can make a product, distribute it. And I think it's just going to be way more accessible for everyone. And again, you just have to teach people who are one step behind you. So yeah, actually, funny story to end it on. I remember, it's good to be back at Imagine RIT, because I remember I came out the dorms when the first Imagine RIT happened, and we saw the poster. My buddy was with me. And back then, it was, the population of the school was skewed more. It was a male-dominant population. We were like, Imagine RIT, yeah. Imagine RIT had more girls to talk to. We could talk to, right? And to be here now after that, of course, Imagine RIT was wonderful, but just to be back and presenting at Imagine RIT is absolutely amazing. So thank you.
You don't need a long resume. Just say, like that Jim Cramer guy, but not bad. I like that. You asked if anybody know Grand Theft Auto. Like, nobody put their hands up. That's like asking people if they've ever eaten at McDonald's. Everybody's done it. That was really remarkable. We've got a lot of questions, and we got to get moving to the final presentation. And our final presenter this afternoon is Karen E. Roth. Karen is a 2006 graduate from RIT's Software Engineering Program and a 2024 Distinguished Alumni Awardee representing the Golisano College of Computing and Information Sciences. She's driven by her passion for women in STEM, which has led her to participate in the Society of Women Engineers, where she is the 25 Society President, as well as past Treasurer and Director of Professional Excellence of this international organization. And professionally, Karen is the Deputy Director of AFWERX, the innovation arm of the Department of the Air Force. She leads strategy and execution across a $1.3 billion portfolio, which serves to expand the defense industrial base for advanced technologies, empower airmen and guardian talent, and drive faster technology transfer to operational capability. Previously, she has served as a chief engineer for the Air Force Research Laboratory Information Directorate, ensuring technical excellence on the international stage. She directed programming and focused on strategic external partnerships to accelerate change and technical impact to the Air Force, which resulted in the creation of the Innovair Alliance. Innovair is an impact-driven global community of scientists, engineers, and entrepreneurs converging on Air Force technology interests via specialized facilities and programming for technology transfer and open innovation. In addition to her RIT degree, Karen holds an executive MBA from Indiana University Kelley School of Business and a master's degree in systems engineering from Cornell. She is currently pursuing an executive certificate in public leadership from the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. Wow. We note that Karen's participation in the symposium and her work on the Golisano College of Computing and Information Sciences National Council is done strictly in a personal capacity, not representing the Department of the Air Force. And on that note, welcome, Karen.
Hi, everyone. It's always great to be back on campus and see another building pop up, I think every 6 months at this point in time. So it's, I went very slide light on this because, well, one, I think it took 10 minutes just to read my resume. I'm sorry about that. But also, you know, when we talk about the future, I think about a very different future thing. I live the future every day. I work for a research laboratory. I work for an innovation arm where we literally have thousands of people telling us the interesting new cool things that they're inventing every single day. So I see it more as my job to figure out how to enable those people to get to that future, because the future is here. You should see everything that I see. Just 1 or 2 weeks ago, Maya sent me over someone that had applied for a small business innovative research fund from my organization and said, what do you think? How can you advise him just a little bit on what the next steps look like? And he's inventing like this really cool goggle to pull around your eyes to talk about PTSD and helping people recover in a different way and looking at those medical sciences. And so, you know, whenever I came out of RIT as a software engineering major in '06, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I know I wanted to be excited about what I wanted to do, have exciting. And when I went to this little research laboratory in Rome, New York, I first of all said, where on earth is Rome, New York? And I second of all was blown away by the passion and excitement about the people working there. And that was the key differentiator in starting to create an innovation organization and apply and find technology that is genuinely applicable for the future, as well as be able to just be excited myself personally about where I wanted to go. And so I putzed around a little bit there. I decided I was still interested in education. I got my systems engineering degree because at the end of the day, I love to understand how things connect together. I want to build a puzzle of the future. It doesn't matter technically. It can be people. It can be other governmental organizations. How do we build what the future should look like together as a team? And how do we bring together those talents? I wandered off from the Air Force for a little bit because I decided I want to understand more production line, work a little more in industry, work directly on that. I worked on an HH-60 variant for Sikorsky aircraft. I got to understand that impact, got to understand earned value management, got to understand accounting, got to know I wasn't very good at that, wanted to be an engineer. And so I started, that's when I did my MBA, because how do I start fitting all these pieces together? I have to understand those types of components if I want to be a better engineer, because I have to be able to advocate for my stuff and the things that I'm passionate about in dollars and cents and profit and loss and return on investment and what that really means. You know, you could have the most brilliant technology idea in the universe, and if you can't communicate that to other people in a way that's meaningful to them, to their value proposition in life, then it's literally the most meaningless technology ever invented. You could have something in your hands that will change humanity, but if you don't know how to connect with people and grow an opportunity space, there is nothing there. It doesn't matter what your ideas and thoughts are. And so whenever, whenever I met a nice boy at a restaurant and decided that I wanted to marry him, and whenever we decided to have kids, and whenever we decided we wanted to move back to New York, after working for Sikorsky, I came back home and I came back to the research laboratory because that's where that inspiration really was of innovation, of being able to connect those facets together to grow something real. And whenever I took a job as chief engineer, the thing that I focused on most was innovation. How do I connect all those facets of my life together in order to make something new? You know, our portfolio at the research laboratory involved AI, ML, quantum computing, command and control, so big data analysis. How do you take sensors from all over the world? I keep telling people I don't need more data, I need better data. I can get as much data as I want, so we are the United States Air Force. But what I need better is more informative data that's actually going to be able to do it better, faster, quicker, so I can make decisions. And that's what we were interested in, looking at, like I said, quantum computing, some early research all the way through application. And I didn't have a dearth of research. I had a dearth of ways to continue to grow that research in order to get more advocates for it, in order to get more partners. My quantum researchers had all of the equipment that we could buy them. They have a beautiful quantum computer. They have laser tables all day long. What they needed was more people to work in teams with them. How do I attract the best and brightest internationally to come work with them? And when you started breaking things down, you know, people will come to you when you have the most interesting technical problems to work on. But if their spouse can't find work, if they can't buy a house, if they don't have somewhere to live temporarily, if they don't have a school for their kids to go to, it literally doesn't matter. I can't get that people there today. And so that's why I poured my heart into, you know, we talk a lot about innovation theater, because people will put a building up and say, look, it's open and there's shiny colors and things like that. There, of course, people will want to work here without taking into account the human piece of what really makes technology great. I watched Oppenheimer finally for the first time recently. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. Took a little bit to get there, but I did get there. And one of the things that blew me away was I'm like, he just got people to come out to the desert to hang out with him. I'm like, and I'm watching this and I'm like, that would not happen today. His wife would have said, nuh-uh, no way am I going to randomly live out in the desert with our kids and just hang out with you while you do science. That is not a reality of today's life, and the technology is so much more complex at the same time too. You can't just go and do like a Kelly Johnson did and say, I want to build an airplane, here's an airplane. Whenever the Air Force says, I want a new helicopter, like it's a Sikorsky, there's literally 300 different companies, not components, companies that participate in the creation of one UH-60. Whereas in the older eras of innovation, all it took was one company and a couple people coming together and having some great ideas. And so the complexity of innovation requires that coordination and that colliding of people coming together. And so the humanity that comes together makes it even more complex on top of the technology as well. So when I decided I was all right, I've done this for a while. What does next mean for me? I found AFWERX, which does not stand for anything, despite the fact it's still a government organization. But it's the innovation arm for the Air Force because it's the external innovation arm. It's the arm that owns all of the small business innovative research funds for the Department of the Air Force. And so I think that that's the coolest thing because I get to see all of the fun new things every single day. I get to apply my interest in innovation and creating innovation, less so the technology. Like I said, the technology is out there, it exists. People are full of amazing ideas, but how do I create the innovation to go along with that? And so was able to move over as the deputy director of that organization and continue to build that future. And that's where I can really start to, I created this picture with AI because I don't like slide making. So I asked AI and I said, what does the confluence of government and small business and academia and industry really look like? And to me, it looks like a puzzle. It looks like a system working together because government's power is setting strategy, setting foundation, being stable and solid. Small businesses' work is to come up with the ideas and start to make them workable, be kind of that engineering arm of that ecosystem where academia comes up with the brilliant ideas to inspire that engineering as well. And then industry is the economies of scale. How do I get this to actually workable across a huge area? And so that's where we work toward that goal every single day of understanding what motivates small businesses. The amount of grant requests and technology that I look at that says, here, Air Force, here's the solution to your problem. And I say, that has nothing to do with the problem that I have. because of the miscommunication between understanding of requirements and need sets and impacts. And so when we say we need a new helicopter, what we actually mean is we need a new helicopter that has these cybersecurity requirements, these communication requirements, these thermal requirements, these weight requirements. It's very easy to say, here's a helicopter, they exist today, but not to meet those requirement needs and genuinely understand how to communicate that above. The organization that I work for is fondly in some circles and not so fondly called the Flying Car Organization, because we love to dream up opportunities and figure out how to make them a reality and find what already exists out there. So flying cars are electronic vehicle and takeoff and landing, so you've probably heard of that a little bit. But we got into that to say, we know the Air Force has a problem we can't solve that already exists out there. It already exists. Commercial industry has solved this, but it's not, we can't get anyone to apply for this and we can actually buy them because we have all of these other unique requirements. So instead of trying to invent it all over again, let's figure out how we pay 25 different companies to work with us to say what's next and learn what inspires them, learns what their hurdles are, learn what we can actually invest in, how can we match investor dollars in order to get there, how do we inspire and work with the investor community to show our buy-in to bring other investments for what they need to those things and really start to bring this ecosystem together. One of the great future examples too of how this type of an ecosystem comes together and how I see this is Rome was one of the first nodes on the ARPANET. The ARPANET was that predecessor to the internet back in the day. And so we literally saw the bits and bytes flying for the very first time where I currently live out in Rome. They also want to be one of the first nodes on the first quantum network. So quantum computing, the Department of Defense is very interested in this because how can we make it so we have more secure communications? And you know, something that is unbreakable from encryption. What does that look like? Can we use quantum to do that? And how do we build the relationships to do that? And so this is one of those examples of, you know, 9 people in a room aren't going to do that by themselves. This is going to require an international level effort in order to bring those teams together and find the best and brightest that understands those things. And so what does it take to build a quantum network? To build ARPANET, it required some government investment and people in a couple nodes in a room talking together. To build a quantum network that spans from New York City down from the Department of Energy and Brookhaven Labs through Rome Laboratory in Rome, New York, across the I-90 corridor, across Ohio, and to end in Chicago, where another Department of Energy laboratory is out there, is going to require infrastructure. It's going to require small businesses to contribute new technical capability, parts, resources, to be able to understand where those gaps are and fill in the gaps, not create the quantum network, but where are the gaps that small businesses and academia can input into that. It's going to require new housing. It's going to require new jobs. There's a $100 billion investment that New York State made in Syracuse for Micron, and the $100 billion isn't for Micron. It's in order to make sure that all the infrastructure, the food, the restaurants, how do we build up all those capabilities around it to make it successful? How do we create other jobs for spouses, for children? How do we build new schools? Again, I went back to Oppenheimer and I'm like, they just built a building there. Like, yeah, just create a city randomly here in the middle of the desert, it will be fine. Today we need plumbing and piping and electricity and things like that. And that's where, if the government stands in its realm of providing that future. And so like one of the things that I would do in my old job is I would go talk to the local government and say, this is what we're doing and this is what it means to you. This is how this can impact economic development. This is how this can impact local businesses. This is how they can do this. And I remember leaving one day, and it still sticks in my head because it entertained me. He's like, one of the legislators came up to me. He's like, that's the first time one of you people talked, and I actually understood what you said. My you people. But, you know, we're so caught in talking about how we know technology and how we perceive technology and how it impacts us today that it's hard to miss the real, how it impacts other people in different ways. And I think that that really is the future of continuing to build those capabilities and bringing people together. I've got the great experience in my career naturally through being curious, by being able to experience all these industries and understand what it impacts them and how it does that. And I haven't really talked about SWE either, but one of the questions they asked us to talk about was, how did RIT contribute to making you who you are today? And I think not only through cooperative education, inspiring curiosity, but organizations like the Society of Women Engineers that I joined 20 plus years ago here on RIT campus, being able to understand how people communicate differently, how their differences make them different, how that makes them innovative. The simple things like, all right, it took a really long time for people to change the seatbelts in cars from the standards of men to also just make it slide up and down so it can do women as well. So integrating women and diversity into technical innovation has a greater impact. It's very simple. And so it impacts a lot of the work that we do in the Society of Women Engineers, not only is supporting women, but also teaching companies on what unconscious bias looks like. How can this actually make your organization better, different, integrate different thinking into your technical and innovation ecosystems to get us to the future quicker. So thank you so much. I know we're on to question and answer time, and I appreciate the opportunity to come see everyone.
You can stay on stage.
I don't have to go
We're
back.
going to have all of the panelists come on up, right on up here. And
Thanks.
I'm going to be asking questions. We're going to keep it as tight as we can to leave room for you if you want to do that as well. And I'll try to be as close as I can do. For a man who works with a microphone, I often don't know if it's on. I think it's on. I'm going to start with Karen and kind of work backwards here through the presentations, because part of what you just talked about is something I think a lot about with changing technology. And that is how often undemocratic tech changes are and how tech changes almost inevitably move culture. My mother never wanted an iPhone. She has an iPhone now. She complains about it, but she has it, because she felt like she had to. What concerns me is you talk about the importance of being able to translate innovation in tech and ideas for the general public, for the masses. Otherwise, ideas often don't go anywhere. But my concern is that power will concentrate as not just AI, but just as the speed of change accelerates. Power will concentrate because the lay public is really going to struggle with the pace of change. And is there an incentive to bring the public and the masses along for those who hold the power of creating that kind of change?
That's a deep question to start it off with. Another thing that I think about the future is that technical innovation is going to be integrated in everything that we do in the future. We're at an immense period of change in human existence for as much change as we've had to internalize and deal with. Are we going to bring everyone along with us tomorrow? Do we need to? Absolutely not. Do we have to recognize that things will continue to change and we need to strike a good balance and looking to the future where almost all jobs and needs are going to have computing capabilities to go along with them, a training program to keep innovating and building that workforce of the future? Yes. And so I think one of the things in terms of bringing our parents along, my dad still uses a flip phone. He's like, I don't want to use this thingy, but he uses a flip phone. He's like, I got one so I could text you. Like, this is the only way I can reach you. And I'm like, that's not true. You can still pick up the phone and call me. But I think it's interesting that his perception of how I had changed as I grew and educated and things like that was that he had to get an iPhone in order to be able to text me because he thought that was the only way I was going to communicate with him. So I do think that, being able to bring bring everyone along with us on how we're operating, what we're doing, our beliefs and things like that is important to show how that technical piece has not changed who we are inherently and how we want to communicate, and we're that same people. And then that technical piece of it doesn't seem so scary either.
Let me turn to Chu. Your presentation was both inspiring and sort of terrifying for me, because I feel like I'm pretty well educated and I still didn't, I struggled with aspects of it. So when you say it's not an NFT, so my son is now past the Pokemon stage, but I was all in it with him. And those were effectively NFTs, right? I mean, he's collecting digital tokens. He's either finding them, he's trading for them. They're not NFTs because at the end of the year they expire? Is that part of what your presentation is telling us?
Yeah, at least in the, a lot of the card collecting games.
But people are paying a lot of money to own temporary digital cards?
Yeah, we're just addicted, man, honestly. It recycles every,
And you know it's going to be gone?
Yeah, I literally know it's going to happen in a few, it's going to happen in September. I'm just like, you know what, I'm still going to, I got to like get everything though. Like, especially my favorite players, I got to have Ronaldo.
I'm a little worried about you.
Oh, hey, I mean, I'm not even that bad. As you see the kids in Europe, they go insane, so.
Part of what I also wonder is this. You can play with these cards, right?
Yes.
These digital cards. But a lot of people take Pokemon, will just collect. Now, some will also play. Some played the card games, and they would play the games. Yep. Some just collected the cards. Same with the digital version of this. Are most of these people are they just collecting, or are they actually playing here?
I think it kind of goes with your stress tolerance. Like, I'm 37, so in gaming years, I'm a grandfather, honestly, because your best reflexes are between, like our best esports players in FC are 17, 18. Your best reflexes are 16 to like 24. So for me, at this age, I mean, I don't want to spend my Saturday getting angry because an 18-year-old beat me in a digital game, and I'm yelling at my PC. I did that last week.
I don't want that for you either.
Exactly. So you know what? I'm like, how about I go outside? So I like to spend time more collecting, and there's also like a stock market element in our game too. So like I can, if I predict what's gonna happen in the real life soccer, I know this guy's gonna sell for more. So I kind of like do a lot of like online trading. I was doing some in the green room especially. So for me, that's a better stress reliever than having to play. So you can really pick your adventure in this kind of thing, in this kind of game.
Multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yes,
amazing.
multi-billion.
Amazing.
Again, we're addicted. It's terrible.
I'm not saying it's terrible. I just want to learn. I'm glad you're here.
I'm telling you, it's
Dr. Kartaltepe, I think it was, and correct me if I'm wrong, a generation ago or maybe 30, 40 years ago that there was doubt that there were that many exoplanets even out there. That it wasn't that long ago that we didn't know that every star probably had multiple exoplanets. And now we know that, and we know that there's potentially countless Earth-type kind of planets and opportunities for life, et cetera. Can you give us a sense for the kinds of questions that you and your colleagues are working on, thanks to the telescope, that might be within reach of being answered in the coming years?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, some of the big questions are really, when was the first star able to form, right? How did it form? What was it like? What were its properties like? When were the first galaxies able to form? How did the first black holes form, right? We know we have these giant black holes in our universe today. We don't know where they came from, right? And there's a lot of theoretical models and ideas about what they could be. But now we're kind of at the point where we can start, hopefully, to answer some of these questions.
Are we likely to see them within years? It's still decades away?
Some things are harder. The first stars are probably the hardest because a single star is really faint. We might be able to see supernovae of the first stars, and those are potentially incredibly bright. We just have to be able to look at the right place at the right time, and we don't know where that's going to be. But I would say that's in reach. And certainly studying the processes for the first black holes is within reach.
Is it useful in your mind to ponder the idea that it is at least statistically very unlikely that we are the only complex life in the universe? And I ask about the utility of this question because despite all of the remarkable scientific advancements, we may never be able to find and connect with other life, either because of time, because of just scale of travel. Is it useful to even ponder that? Do you think about that?
I think we all think about that. I mean, just statistically, right? I said there's trillions of galaxies, which is already a crazy number. And we have hundreds of billions of stars in our own galaxy. And we know, right, we're learning that planets are ubiquitous, right? They're everywhere. Everywhere we look, we see them. So the chances of this being the only planet that had the right circumstances for complex life seems really slim. But yeah, like you said, we may never know for
That's
sure.
the hard one. We may never get an answer on that. Although what we are learning at RIT every year is you never say never on anything, I suppose. Bob, I don't know if you noticed that the audience gasped at one point in your presentation when that surgery was successful and the story of the twins, amazing. And I think I speak for all of us when I say how grateful we are that there are people like you doing this kind of work. It's really, really amazing. And that was 15, 16 years ago?
Yeah, about 16 years
So,
ago.
and you took us through how a lot is changing. Before we came here today, you talked about how you might want to weigh in on how you see AI, because I'm kind of an AI curmudgeon.
Yeah.
I would like to think that AI in your field is a tremendous, hopefully, boon to society. Do you see it that way?
Yeah, I do. I see it for both the learner and the patient, us. You know, it does present, you know, really great possibility to be able to do the work of thousands opposed to one to a group, right? So there's a story we share, and then this is in the practice, maybe a little outside of my scope, but Dr. Paul Friedman, he's a cardiologist, the electrical patterns of the heart. He uses AI to take large data sets beyond his team or any amount of cardiologists that we have in the Mayo system to analyze data. And so amongst the data that he's looking at, of course, he can diagnose heart disease. But what they found was that certain individuals that have similar heart disease have blood disorders that they didn't realize. And they have liver disorders that they didn't realize. And that they can predictively help them avoid it. That's powerful. And so can you use AI to do the work that a large number of humans can't? The answer is yes. And we're working on it. And I'd say at Mayo Clinic, we've got thousands of algorithms that we're working on. There's only a handful that we're using in practice because we have to ensure it's safe, it's trusted, there's no bias. And what I mean by bias is that, you know, there might be large data sets of patients that have a certain gender or a certain race, and you have an answer. But then there's a race or somebody or an individual that they don't represent the large mass of data. So what the predictions are don't represent. And so there needs to be more cleaning of the data, more understanding of how it's used. So on the patient side, it's great. And then just quickly on the learner side is that, you know, yeah, we collect data in learner management systems, but we don't have intelligence. So can you use AI where the learner in their journey, you're collecting training data, you're collecting ways in which they, you know, interact with systems, and the system gets smarter in order to give them individual advice on their learning journey.
The conclusion of your presentation, you know, having us think about it, you'll never be able to recreate somebody's voice and face and likeness, right? And we're seeing it happen on the screen. I was disturbed by that. What actually gives me hope is that at least that kind of technological advancement can be of great benefit in the medical field.
Yeah.
I worry outside of the medical field, you know, but at least you will save lives, and I am grateful for that.
Yeah, thanks. And I think that really this technology has to come from trusted sources, so that's what we're kind of focused on, that all this data collection is within what, you know, they call walled garden, so you understand that what the information that gets sent back to you is vetted and you trust it.
I'm sure we have some audience questions, so as we get ready for that, just briefly, because I get the microphone, I get to ask this question every year. And we like to get weird at RIT. I like to ask panelists here, what percentage chance do you give it that we're living in a simulation? Chu?
Man, I'm the wrong person to ask for that. I'll say 90, man.
You think 90%?
Yeah.
90%.
This can't, I mean.
It just
what
feels
is
too much like it's got to be a
like you
simulation.
ever sit down and be like, what is going on, man? That's what I think.
I do think that.
Yeah.
Yeah. 90%.
90%.
Dr. Kartaltepe.
Oh, let's go with 5%.
5%. Okay. So very unlikely, but you wouldn't foreclose on the possibility.
Exactly.
Okay.
Creating simulations experience is part of my life. Less than 1%.
Less than 1%. Less than 1%. Karen.
I'm going to go with 0%. And I worked in modeling and simulation as well, and I have a 4-year-old, and I could never replicate some of the stuff that comes out of that 4-year-old in a simulation. No AI can replicate how my 4-year-old, the things that she comes up with.
And briefly, my last question before we turn to the audience is, given the pace of technological change, would you advise students to follow the same kind of career path you have, knowing that there's a lot of consternation that different fields are going to shrink, perhaps pretty dramatically? Karen?
I'm very biased, but I will tell anyone that you can never go wrong with an engineering degree. Pick one, stick with it. None of the work that I did while I was at RIT, the programming languages are relevant today, but all of the knowledge and learning and problem solving skills that I built to be an engineer are absolutely relevant. And so don't think about it in terms of is this still going to be relevant? Think about it that the skills that you're taking away from it.
Okay, Bob?
Yeah, we live in a visual world, and so whether it's illustration or animation or modeling, the opportunity to be able to tell visual stories is relevant today and will be in the future as it was when I did it.
Okay, Jeyhan?
It would be hard not to. Like I said, I think I have the best job in the world. But of course, the reality is science funding is shrinking continuously. And so the job market's tough. But students with a degree in any science, really, but especially, I think, in astrophysics, learn so many skills that can be applied to all kinds of jobs, especially data-heavy, computational-heavy, science, communication, et cetera.
Chu?
I think it's they should keep pursuing this. I think we're standing in this amazing building that is just showing that everybody's getting more into the gaming side of things, game development, and I think there's just way more opportunities to even get into it than when I was a student. Like, I was just running in the dark in terms of trying to get in the industry. I used to make fake IDs to get into fake business cards. Sorry, not fake IDs. Fake business cards to get into gaming conferences. Just to have like interviews on the show floor of like E3 in Los Angeles. When I was at RIT.
You're getting a lot off your chest today.
Oh, yeah. So I think now, I had no idea if it was impossible to get into gaming. I think RIT is showing the students that it's more than likely that you can have an amazing career in gaming, and there's just way more ways to get into it now, and they're seeing past students get into it, so they know that there's a path. I had no idea there was a path, so.
All right, to the audience we go. And I guess we're just going to project. Oh, we've got microphones. Yes, we do.
How worried are you with AI when it comes to manipulation, of the gaming world, where there's a lot of cheating going on? But I'm going to bring up Hal from the movie 2001, A Space Odyssey. What if there's a failure? How do you get out of it, and how are people going to be able to retain their investment?
I mean, it scares me more than anything, this AI thing. I feel like, we've made too many movies to show us where it goes, right? Like, why don't we take lessons from movies? And I think, I hope that it's going to be way far in the future where something like that happens. I think, like you, I'm kind of worried about the manipulation, even in gaming, even in, I was reading something about a guy that was in a Zoom call, and he made a crazy bank transfer to a scammer because the scammer basically put AI on all the staff. So the guy who's sending the money thought that he was just in a Zoom call with a whole room of his fellow staff members. So this is just the beginning. We're in the iPhone 3G phase of AI. What happens when we get to iPhone 15, iPhone 16? I think it's going to get pretty serious, and we just need to be better people to make sure that doesn't get out of hand. So I don't know if that's a big ask.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we can put the brakes on it. If we could, would you put the brakes on it?
Oh yeah,
You would.
It's getting scary, man. Oh, I asked ChatGPT to write a script in my voice tone. I was like, write something in the tone of ChuBoi, and it literally got my exact intro that I put on every video. And I was like, yeah, shut this down, man. Shut it down right now.
Why are we doing this, man?
Yeah, again, Terminator 2? Come on.
I mean, I don't know about that, but still, I mean,
Skynet?
I have a lot of problems before we even get to Terminator 2. But anyway, in the audience, yes.
I have 4 questions, but 3 of them I will ask after the panel is done. But this one is for you on the lighter side. Are you planning to watch the game tomorrow morning?
Oh, Man United?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, we're terrible right now. I won't lie to you.
You're
But
fifth
you
in the
won point
table,
for
aren't
being
you?
in the
No, we're
lead.
worse than that. Sorry?
Seventh,
They
maybe?
won point for being in the lead.
Oh, that's Man City, I mean, right?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm Man United. I don't like Man City. Yeah,
You caught on me. I'm sorry.
no, it's all right. I mean, it's you know, Man United growing up was the best team. It was the biggest club, and then now we got these neighbors in Man City, and they're just doing way better than us. But I do wake up every day to watch football. It's part of my job. That's why I also moved to the East Coast, because on the West Coast, you had to wake up at 4:30 in the morning to watch soccer. So that was kind of brutal. So East Coast is a lot better.
For the American fans who don't know, Man United and Man City are like the Yankees and Red Sox. The rest of the league just views them as the bullies, and they have all the resources. So, Chu, you're rooting for the Yankees. I'm from Cleveland, so I'm an Everton fan.
Wow. Yeah, you're in trouble this year, man.
I know.
You might be going
I
down.
know. Well, we're in trouble most years. In the audience,
So if someday in the future you open up a newspaper or maybe a news app on your phone and you read a headline that within your field feels like the big development, like, oh my gosh, I just read this headline, it's the best day ever, this is the big thing we've been waiting for to happen, what would that look like?
I love that question. Let's go down, Karen, at the end first. We'll just come this way.
Yeah, you know, I want to be able to answer that, but like it's funny. We're almost inundated with technical innovations today in a way because of the amount and the pace of change that comes. And so the change is very incremental as it comes as a result of that. So like nothing is really shocking me lately. I think the thing that would shock me most is if, you know, all of a sudden we all got together and started singing in a circle Kumbaya and deciding that we were magically going to share and build the next great space rocket together. Like that would be the most shocking thing to me.
Bob?
There's so much in healthcare, but you know the most shocking would be that cancer doesn't exist. You know that we've somehow found cures or diagnoses or treatments, and under the surface is whether it's AI or really talented providers is that we're living cancer free. That would be amazing.
Dr. Kartaltepe.
In some ways, I feel like I've been living this the last couple of years with all the discoveries we've been seeing. But if I had to think of one thing that I think is achievable but would blow me away, that's finding something very extreme in the early universe, like it would probably have to be one of these supernovae that I mentioned, right? That really confirms or challenges our understanding of the very formation of our universe.
Chu?
I'm gonna stray from my field. I'm gonna go into hers. I gotta see these aliens, man. I don't know. That's like the one thing I gotta see in this life. I gotta meet them.
I didn't pick that one. It felt less realistic.
No, it's good. It's gotta happen. It's gonna happen, or it's a simulation.
Well, we know it's 90% simulation, Chu.
I'm saying, yeah.
More in the audience here. Oh, we've got a wrap here, don't we? Is that what you're telling me?
You got one.
Oh, can we squeeze a student in?
Yeah, let's
Okay, we'll ask one.
You can yell it.
I actually
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, look behind you. Grab that microphone. There you go.
1, 2, 3. Oh, yeah. So you were bold in many ways, from leaving EA, going to RIT in itself is a bold thing. But you ventured to making your own product in one of the most toxic spaces. And I was looking online, and great reviews across the board. The people love your product, which is amazing. But my question to you is, how did you, I guess, summon that belief to venture? Like what kind of criteria do you put into place to determine if you should take that leap of faith in any venture that you are looking to do?
I feel like, thank you, by the way, that's insane what you just said about the RIT thing. I think, and this is something I talk about with my best friend a lot, is, if you have an idea and you have that gut feeling that it's going to be something good, and then you tell a few people, and if a few people think you're crazy, then it's a sign that you should do it. Because even my mom, I was telling my mom, video games are gonna be the future. Yeah, you're crazy. You should quit EA. My friends told me I was crazy because I got to meet all these soccer players. I got free tickets to any game I want. I got free tickets to the World Cup. You're crazy if you leave. All right, that's a sign that you should go. So make your plan. Like when I was leaving EA, I made sure I had enough savings to save up for like 1 year without making money, things like that. So. I would say if you hear some discouragement from your friends, keep an eye on those guys because they might not be your buddies. I had some of that as well, but when people think you're crazy, you're probably on the right path. So you're going to be the first to do it.
Hey, how about a hand for these panelists? They would like to thank their sponsors. WXXI is proud to be a sponsor. Yeah, Chu?
Because he signed up.
No kick. No, I don't think so.
How does that work?
I think you're making enough money on.
No, hey, there's never no. I want to.
Never enough.
I gotta talk to Bishop.
Never enough. XXI is proud to sponsor Liberty Mutual and Magic Spell Studios for hosting today's event. And I know this is going to leave a lot of people inspired. I know there's still a lot of questions that are unanswered. I think the panel is doing amazing work here. And they want me to make sure you know, which you probably already know, be back tomorrow morning first thing. It is a phenomenal, big, awesome weekend. And they've got the shed. They've got so many things happening on this campus. Thank you for letting me be a part of it. And good night, everyone.